Hollow Knight Silksong is a Metroidvania. It's a Metroidvania with rare poise and, this is crucial even after a recent patch, a fearsome sense of conviction. It casts you as an elegant and swift-spirited bug, a hornet, who's been kidnapped and left to explore worlds of wonder and horror. What a place, or series of places. Let's pause here for a second before the carnage begins and just ponder how beautiful this hand-drawn universe is. Here are grottos, caverns and passageways carved from the living earth. Here are complex factories filled with spinning saw blades and steam vents and abandoned coastal towns scaled for inhabitants no bigger than the lint that gathers at the bottom of your pocket. All of this is complemented by a score that's haunted, playful and endlessly beckoning. It's all filled with life too. As with the first Hollow Knight, Silksong's world is fairly rattling with shopkeepers and cartographers and all kinds of neglected artisans and explorers. They're filled with charm and the art styles fully able to switch things up from one area to the next. All of this without warping the game's own sense of internal coherency. This is all artful stuff, in other words, and sure enough, there is an art to everything in Silksong. Even, since this is a Metroidvania after all, to the act of being stuck. Getting stuck is a big part of Silksong after all. Here is a game in which you can get stuck at almost any point, doing almost anything. Bosses? Sure, but also kill rooms, combat gauntlets, those particularly tricky platforming sections involving spike walls and untrustworthy flooring that only 2D games can conjure. With all of these ways of getting stuck, what to do next when you are stuck in Silksong becomes a question of self-expression. You're not moving forward, so what now? Take a boss fight, for example. You could just keep at it, head down, powering through attempts, each time getting a little better, and then a lot worse as your attention wanders and you get exhausted. Alternatively, you could leave, have a wander, heading back and forth across Silksong's tight clusters of interconnected maps, looking for secrets you'd failed to spot, a health boost or a silk boost, both of which would make you hardier. More rosary beads, Silksong's gorgeous, ever-scattering currency to buy new things at the shop. That's always nice. Side bosses you might have missed, and so on. At times, stuff like this is very annoying, but on the flip side, all of that wandering and pondering makes you move closer to the game. You go deeper into its world in a way that you might not have done if you'd been aimlessly moving through it. The original Hollow Knight had moments like this, of course, but Silksong, as you may have heard, is pretty much nothing but them. The world is brutal. Even the simplest of enemies will occasionally cough up an attack that does 2 points of damage rather than 1, while most bosses lop off 2 points as standard. Then there's the wider world, which is massively expanded, more ambitious in its scope, its size, and the horrors it wants you to navigate as you slowly gain the powers to access more and more of it. Much of the changes to the world of Hollow Knight are because of Hornet, the new main character. Hornet is faster and more nimble than Hollow Knight's protagonist, so there's a learning curve from the very off. Relatively quickly she earns a dash, but it's an endless dash rather than Hollow Knight's timed boost, and this encourages you to tackle things at extreme speed and to be geographically ambitious. She can also mantle, so mere traversal has an accelerative pace to it too, and again, fairly early on, she gets the ability to float gently to the ground. Hornet also attacks at an angle, her downstrike busting out on a diagonal that takes a little time to get used to. In combat, this means you need to put in the work to understand how far from a foe you should be in order to land a strike on them from above. When it comes to movement and a pogoing downstroke move the game wants you to do an awful lot, it means that lining up paths through rebound spots can be very frustrating. There is a lot to learn, in other words. But there are rich pleasures to all this, not least when you know what you're doing and you become a darting rapier, able to exploit the sharpest of angles and the tiniest of openings. Bosses and tricky enemies will also encourage you to make the most of your wider arsenal. In point of fact, they will really punish you for not doing this, and so we head into the new menus where you typically have a few slots to pick between specials, a few slots to pick between passive items, and a few for new offensive items like throwing knives or traps. Then there are crests, which can fundamentally transform your attack approach, and which bring their own slots with them. You can change all of this up at rest spots, which is also where you'll regenerate after a brutal pummeling. Experimentation is the true name of the game here, and after a few hours you'll probably have favourite loadouts for specific kinds of challenges. Hornet also heals slightly differently than players coming from Hollow Knight might be used to. Hornet uses silk to heal, which is commonly generated through attacks. You build it all up until you have enough, and then you cash it in for 3 masks worth of health. There are trade-offs though. You're vulnerable when you heal, and then you're vulnerable right afterwards too, because the silk you use for healing is also used for powering special attacks. Into this vulnerability, the game builds potential strategies, like bosses where you're safe if you heal in the air at just the right moment. Stopping at a bench and retooling yourself as well as healing is crucial to Silksong then, and that's because as the game moves from swamp and forgotten homestead upwards and upwards, it's constantly mixing up what it wants of you. There are devious, maddening pogo stretches where you dash between rebound points and cling to walls. There are kill rooms where the doors come down and the waves come in, which are often harder than the bosses. There's a narrative that is happy to thread you back and forth through new areas and neglected aspects of very old areas until you feel like a sewing needle stitching the whole map and all its parts together. And then there are the new quests called Wishes, which are there to tempt you off the main path with the promise of a cool new gadget.
Ushka Mitri!
Enemies are beautiful and deadly, scaling in size and complexity as you move back and forth through the world, and then there are the bosses, which require a complex choreography to complete. There are loads of these bosses, and while the worst can feel like slogfests with overpowered attacks, the best foreground Hornet's ability to dance around danger. These are joint performances undertaken between the developer and the player, as you find a space for yourself within an established routine. Silksong is one of those games that is both brutally hard, but is also often gleefully, provocatively cheap with it. Silksong is filled with giggling cruelty that provides a wonderfully tart counterpoint to the haunted dreaminess of the characters and their world. It's a confrontational kind of difficulty. It seems to want to make you ponder why the game treats you the way it does. The harsh damage, the general absence of invulnerability, the epic pylons, the endless churn of bosses, many of which come with elaborate and soul-sapping runbacks because the benches are sparse and most of them you have to pay to unlock and some of them are trapped or even broken. Yes, it's not uncommon to fight your way through hell in Silksong, only to find a rest area and discover that you can't actually afford the rest. Granted, difficulty is a nightmare to try to explain because it's ultimately subjective. What some people might find difficult in a game, other people might not. But Silksong isn't just difficult, it's purposefully and creatively cruel in its design at times, and this feels like a more objective observation. It wants to surprise and frustrate and occasionally make you angry. Even with the first softening patch arriving, difficulty feels like a central preoccupation here. There are moments where Silksong is really trying to be as unkind as possible, and this seems like a conscious choice from Team Jerry. So what does Silksong lose through all of this? A certain degree of goodwill, certainly. Social media is already filled up with fans who just can't take any more of this kind of bullshit. Those runbacks, the platforming gauntlet that comes after a boss but before the next bench and any kind of reward, the paying and paying for the most basic things in the game. Our time on Earth is short. Don't spend it on things you hate. Difficulty like this ultimately means that fewer players will see everything that this team has made.
That's fine.
But what then does Silksong gain? For one thing, community. Back to social media again, where Silksong truly is everywhere. It's not just people complaining, more often it's people sharing tips, pointing out ways to get more of a handhold on this awful world, telling strangers how to have a slightly better time of it out there. This is free publicity, of course. To finish the game, many people will pretty much have to engage with the community. You make progress by word of mouth. But it's not just publicity, it's a bunch of people coming together to help one another, to explore something together, and sometimes to endure it together and vent about it together. Silksong is the work of a small group of people making a game absolutely for themselves. Even with the patches rolling in, they made the game that they wanted to make, without much obvious compromise or fretting over trends. In a world of Netflix algorithms telling film directors they have to have a fight in the first 5 minutes, and of ingratiating AI, and of endless producers who have just a few notes, guys, it's so good to see this kind of thing in all the instances where it happens. Silksong then is beautiful, thrilling, and charmingly mean-spirited, but it's also a game filled with revelations and genuine personality. Now is a great time to score some incredible games through Humble Choice. Live now through to October 7th, you can grab WWE 2K25, Destiny 2 Legacy Collection, The Plucky Squire, Return to Monkey Island, and more. Whether you're building up your backlog or discovering something new, this is the perfect time to pick up these fan favourites. Plus, every purchase supports a good cause, with this month's featured charity being Team Rubicon. Get a curated mix of PC games every month, all for just £11.49 a month.